Hello, Oscar.
Hello.
How do you feel about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?
Well, we're recording this on...
He died for our sins, you know.
Sure, he's okay, I guess.
If there was an alternate Jedi Power Battles-esque cut of the Bible where Jesus survived, what do you think his profession would go on to be?
Banfa herder.
Today we're talking about Star Wars again. Last time we gave the viewer, maybe there's two viewers.
Viewer and a half.
We gave them a bracket update. So we won't do that now.
Yes, now there are no mysteries left surrounding the bracket.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
bracket is all out there, revealed.
So we might just go straight into... Oh, we didn't actually do the reviews for...
Oh, we forgot to do the reviews.
Power Battles. You know what? We're recording this at the same time. We'll splice in...
Back to the present.
Having fixed the timeline, we are here today to talk about two Star Wars games. They're sort of thematically, I guess, genre linked.
I thought you said Jan Ra linked, like it's a pharaoh or something.
Yeah,
it's Jan Ra himself.
We have they're both in the minds of the sheep.
Yeah, these are these are popular games. Now, This is a matchup where, you know, these are the games people say, like, there are a lot of bad Star Wars games, but these two are definitely part of the good ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can also say that these particular two games are Star Wars, Dark Forces 2,
yes,
Jedi Knight.
Yep.
Going up against
Star Wars, I don't know, Republic Commando.
We're finally here.
Republic Commando was the first game.
The very first
list.
game. This entire thing.
Yes.
We are here because of Republic Commando.
Yes.
I just want to turn it over to you when it comes to speaking your mind on the hit video game Republic Commando.
We can get to my opinions on Republic Commando. Let's, because there might be some, you know, I might show my hand here. So instead, I'll talk a bit about Republic Commando. Just introduce it.
Yes.
We'll talk a little bit about Dark Forces 2, and then we can go on to feelings.
Sounds great.
So Republic Commando is it isn't really, I don't think the timeline adds up, but it feels like the design philosophy of Republic Commando is a pre-Halo console shooter game. I'll say. You play a commander of a commando squad, I guess, of clone troopers. The game all takes place between the end of Attack of the Clones and, I guess, pre-Revenge of the Sith.
I don't remember if it goes into Revenge of
I
the Sith.
don't think it does. I think it's just, it's sort of from that till an unspecified period of time.
Yeah.
It's a squad-based first-person shooter with it's like heavily Metroid Prime visually coded. You have a visor,
lot of HUD elements, like in-universe HUD elements, that sort of thing.
You have the visor. You see through the T. You can get goop on it, and it scrapes it off. You have a bunch of like weapon upgrades, or like you have basically the same blaster, and then you can switch out parts of it to get a grenade launcher or like a sniper. And you basically you play a campaign in which you are part of the Republic's clone army, doing I'll say like covert ops, which is mostly putting C4 on stuff.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. It's pretty story.
Yeah, like I mean, it's of course you're playing through a story, but the story is not the focus. Like there isn't a very clear narrative or drama structure to it. It's just game starts, Republic commandos do missions. You've seen Star Wars Episode 2 and 3, right? And then it's I feel like
I don't think 3 was out.
Well, then they probably haven't seen it.
No.
but it really felt like it's supposed to be, here's what these Republic commandos were doing as the movie was going on elsewhere.
It feels very of its time, sort of cross-media, transmedia campaign. Like this is part of a bigger whole in which we are marketing these movies. There's a website, there's the movie, there's Republic Commando,
it's a bit like what Shadows of the Empire was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
exactly
like that.
Shadows of the Empire probably would have worked a lot better if it also had a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
In a sort of objective look at the game, it isn't technically very interesting. It is a game, to me, that the most interesting thing about the game, detached from how it plays, is how beloved it is. Because I feel like most people who think they love this game have not replayed it, which might be a hint towards the quality of the game. But it's also a game that it has a PC port, but I think it got like a console re-release or remake or remaster or what you want to call it. That basically came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it was removed from being very easily accessible for a lot of people for a very long time. And I'll say the PC game, because I remember playing this demo when it released. And it looked very good for the time. It's around like Half-Life 2 era. Doesn't look as good as Half-Life 2, but it was like utilizing bump maps a ton. And those don't work on PC.
No.
They stopped working like 3 years after the game came out.
I remember thinking that the game looked pretty like bland.
Yeah, it looks super flat now because nothing is reflective.
So it's almost like it looks more like... I almost say it looks like a PS2 game, but I guess it is a PS2 game. so whatever. But I don't. Do you want to leave it there for now?
Yeah, we can talk about Dark Forces 2, which is also that feels like a game that's like that's like Episode 1 Racer. That almost doesn't need to be talked about. Or I should say to us,
to our generation.
Yes,
but yeah, Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. To many people, myself included, for a very long time as a young lad, was the Star Wars game. It was like the game that wow, this is a game like it's like Star Wars and so on. And it's like I really enjoyed playing this when I was a kid, and I played it a lot, and I have now replayed it, and there are a lot of good things about the game, but also a lot of bad things.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe we'll get to that if we get to the part where we cut a game.
Yeah, I can just say quick, like I can if people don't actually know what this game is, I can just properly introduce it. Like in Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, you play as Kyle Katarn, who is a guy, and he he has to do things to Dark Jedi in the game. His dad gets murdered, and he has to find the MacGuffin Valley of the Jedi place and go there and pick up a lightsaber on the way and use force powers and fight enemies and walk around.
He's basically like a rogue scoundrel type guy in the beginning. It's technically a direct sequel to Dark Forces,
it's
which we've talked about. And this game, we have talked about Jedi Academy. We haven't talked about Outcast yet. But I'll say in most ways, Jedi Knight or Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, I'll just praise it for its amazing presentation of live action cutscenes, and it's sort of, to me, it is the quintessential look of the extended universe.
Absolutely.
This is that Star Wars, but the gameplay, if people are at all familiar with Jedi Outcast or Academy, Jedi Knight looks and plays like an indie developer who did like a PlayStation 1 remake of Outcast.
Yes.
Like all the things are there. You have the force powers. You have basically the same weapons, but it is probably one of the least sort of well-oiled or like well-defined 3D first-person shooters.
Yeah, like it's a very unique engine in the game, and it's a bit rough.
Yeah, I wrote down on my note here, but I can actually remember it, that I think you could describe the Dark Forces 2 and the expansion Mysteries of the Sith. You can describe the feel of that game as in, okay, Doom came out, and first-person shooter movement and acceleration and stuff worked in one way. And then when it came to moving to 3D, id Software made Quake, and that game is like pinpoint, it's still very fast, but you've lost this sort of like, you don't sort of accelerate and decelerate in your turn radius. But Dark Forces is basically a 3D version of Doom in how you move, in that it's very like, it's almost like you're a bit on ice, and the jump arcs are like you move really fast up and down. Like it isn't very precise.
No, I remember I don't think I've said this at any point, but I often think about the game like it's a bit of a 3D version of how it feels to move around in something like Symphony of the Night, where you can, you can jump really high at the incredible speeds and crash into the roof, or you can run at incredible speed and crash into a wall. Like, this is one of the best qualities of the game, I think.
It is a very funny game.
Yes, it's very funny. It's very entertaining. Where it starts to fall apart for me, just like with Dark Forces 1, and also the
every
sequels to
game
this
made by any of the people who touched this,
is that the level design in these games are beyond atrocious.
Yes.
They are horrible.
They are also quite Doom 2-ish, but they're sort of expanded. They're basically just, they're labyrinths where everything looks identically.
And the thing that
like even the open stages, like okay, you're
like the tower stage.
Yeah, it's a really big open stage, but it's basically a big block surrounded by 18 identical buildings, and all of them do different shit, and it's impossible to keep track of where you've been and where you are.
Yeah, and you'll flip a random switch, and it's like very hexen, you'll flip a switch, you have no idea what it did. You'll hear something like, this is obviously something that's timed, but I don't know what is timed, and I don't know if I'm supposed to speed across the entire map somewhere else and crack my head on a jump into a little thing that opened, or like that sort of thing. I'll say this, when people talk about old games in contrast to new modern games, you'll say like, back in the day when games didn't hold your hand, and it'll be like, it was so much better, level design was top of the line, and so on. Is extremely rose-tinted glasses to me, because what I think people actually like about these old games, and I like a lot of old games as well, but they like certain aspects of the game, like how it might feel to play, like the graphics, aesthetics, that sort of thing, and then they kind of gloss over what it's like to actually play the game. Like I remember at the time I compared it a bit, as I am wont to do on this podcast. I compared it to a Wolfenstein game that we also played at some point, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which is also a game which is like, oh, this is like, a classic game that, everybody likes this, and then you play it past the first 2 levels, and the games become completely unplayable because of the way the levels are designed. And I feel like this game is one of those games that it has a lot of really good things to it, but actually playing the game, when you get to that point where you're just standing in this incredibly like weird blocky vertical Star Wars area, and you have a million switches, you have no idea what you're supposed to do, and you're just running around in circles, then it kind of fizzles out very quickly, like the enjoyment factor to me.
Yeah, I think this is a sort of an issue with all the Jedi Knight games.
Yes.
Or I guess Dark Force is sort of
Outcast is a whole other beast in this area. But
yeah, sure. Absolutely.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, that game. But they all sort of do the same thing. It's something that gets exacerbated by the fact that Star Wars environments just by nature look very samey.
Yeah.
Especially like, oh, you're in an Imperial outpost, or you're in a Star Destroyer. It's a unending corridor, which you have to go in every room, and so that part isn't great. It's kind of hard to say. I almost wanted to say that I think this is something like Outcast does it better, because it's the same thing, but the actual gameplay is less frustrating. Because as funny as it is that you can, jump and hit your head on the roof and die, because you're going to see a Kyle Katarn third-person corpse gliding a lot as you're, continue, and then he's just like... That's going to happen a ton if you play Dark Forces 2. And it does, as most things do, wear out its welcome once you start wanting to progress.
Yes.
Then again... Outcast doesn't have the amazing live action.
No, it doesn't have the presentation.
Yeah, it doesn't have the presentation. It's way more inventive. Outcast is so much more reined in.
Yes.
So Outcast is sort of a boring Star Wars story.
The best thing about Jedi Knight when it comes to like, this is really Star Wars, this is like the ultimate expanded universe experience. No original characters from the trilogy.
Yeah.
No original locations from the trilogy.
Yeah.
And it has none of these things that every other piece of Star Wars media absolutely relies on to convey, look, it's Star Wars. And this feels way more Star Wars than any of them. And
it doesn't even have a Sith.
No, there are
Sith.
no Sith in the game. There are 7 Dark Jedi.
Yeah.
Very great like visual characters, in my opinion. Mostly because of the fact that they are clearly Dark Jedi.
Yeah.
Like they have, like we talked about, lightsaber colors in the last episode, but like they all have their individual lightsaber colors and like how they act and
they look
demeanor.
like guys. They're a group of guys and gals for their own selfish reasons, or they're like, I guess, being scared shitless of Jarek, have turned bad, I guess. I wouldn't say evil either for a lot of them. I don't know, they're self-serving, I guess, but most of them don't have. Jarek is a mustache twirling villain.
Yes.
But he is the villain, so...
Yeah, but like one of the things I liked about the villains in the game, especially considering like the meta time, like in the real world, the time when this game was released, like before the prequels, before a lot of like expanded universe stuff. Later on in the lore of, the weirdo lore of the expanded universe, they've retconned it, so it's like, no, Jarek was actually, he was the Padawan of, the old lady in the Jedi Temple, and he was actually sent to the far reaches of the galaxy as Order 66 happened, and then he came back and just became an Inquisitor, like, I'm signing up for the bad guys, like that sort of thing. But in Jedi Knight, you don't really get any sort of background lore of these characters. They are just there, which I think is great, because it adds, a lot of mystique to them. Because at this point, like, this game takes place shortly after Return of the Jedi. Yeah. So it's like, there are like Jedi are supposedly not around at this point in the setting, or at least not publicly around. So the fact that you have Kyle Katarn and you have his his father's buddy, Kuran, who was a Jedi, but was killed by Jarek. Like, you see all these Jedi, and you kind of think, like, these Jedi were clearly around during the prequel era of Star Wars, most of them, even though the prequel era was not invented at the time. But it makes it feel like all of these guys have come out of hiding to do this thing.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's 7 evil versions of Obi-Wan. You know, people who were in hiding, and then they came out and, like, joined Jarek and, you know, became evil, something like that. You can make up whatever you want. They sell the Star Wars feel for me.
Yeah. With that said, we sort of talked a bunch of mess about Dark Forces too here. I think there is a 0% chance that Dark Forces 2 will be cut here.
Yes.
It cannot lose.
It absolutely unopposedly moves on over Republic Commando.
Republic Commando, I believe, is the lowest, because, spoilers, when we played these games and reviewed them, we did give them scores.
Yes.
Scores that we have decided to not rely upon.
No.
But I do believe Republic Commando started off the entire project with the lowest score ever given out.
Yes, it stayed being the lowest.
Yes, I believe it got a 0.5 out of 10.
Why is that?
Yeah, I have a hard time finding almost any redeeming qualities about Republic Commando. Are there any?
You could think of it like this. Since Republic Commando is a game that everybody except us loves.
But no one has played.
Yes, exactly. Like, we are the only ones who have actually played Republic Commando.
Yes.
I get the feeling that this is just one of those things where tons of people just, no matter if they have, you know, maybe they played Republic Commando when they were kids, maybe they haven't, but it's just one of those things you're supposed to say Republic Commando is great. You're just supposed to love Republic Commando, and it's one of those things where I honestly believe people just have no clue what they're talking about when it comes to this, because the game is like, it's like such an unbelievable chore, the entire game.
Yes, it is a horrible task.
Yes.
I'll say this. I am not equipped with the faculties. I think my inner workings are of too high of quality to be able to be immersed in Republic Commando as a setting. I'll say, just personally, I do not enjoy the idea of commandos. To me, the entire point of the clone troopers structure, sure, you can have people who are like, I'm a pilot, they made me a pilot, but they're supposed to be 1 million identical looking idiots. That's the point of the clones. It bothers me a bunch, like in this game, that your crew are all like individuals. And it also super bothers me that one guy has like, I guess this is pre-Halo Reach, but you know, they're very Halo Reach. Like, one guy has like a red claw blood paint over his face. You know, and I want to remind you here that the beginning of this game is the first battle of Geonosis, which means that the guy with the badass blood marking has never seen combat before. This is his first deployment, which maybe that's like that makes sense. There are chumps everywhere, but they are clones.
Yes.
I hate the fact that the clones call you sir. Why the fuck would one clone call another clone sir?
Yeah.
Maybe commander. I'd take that. But a clone calls Obi-Wan sir.
Exactly.
Because a clone cannot physically relate to an individual. Yeah, they can't do it. They say it because it's like, I have to say this. Like, every clone is a high-functioning autist by design. They don't plug in that shit when they make them. They don't stick it in the head. They don't go, here's a bunch of societal level social interaction material. They put them in front of a computer. There are 500 of them identical in a room, and they play a game which is assemble the laser rifle. Like,
you see it in the movie.
I hate it.
Yeah, it doesn't help either that, you know, like to me, I had no investment in like Republic Commando when I played it. I also didn't know we were gonna play every Star Wars game at the time. But what really stuck out to me very early in the game, in terms of like, wow, this is really, you know, this is not what I thought it was gonna be from the way everyone's singing its praises, is, you know, the game has a bunch of, you know, like, move in, halt, flank them, you know, there's this illusion in the game that, you know, you're commanding your clone troopers and you have to like flank around the enemies. You have to issue orders to your guys. You're a squad. It's like space SWAT or something. It is not.
No,
it is.
It isn't. I'll say it isn't practically. It doesn't end up being that because the game goes a different direction. Yeah, the game sort of isn't balanced around it either. It doesn't actually have those systems.
No,
it has some completely context sensitive things you can tell your guy to do, and it's like, if we enter this room, I can tell one of my guys to stand on sofa because the sofa is a stand-on object.
Yeah.
There isn't a sort of toggle my guy into being on alert mode.
You know what it's like? It's like, you know that one part in Metal Gear Solid 2 on the tanker where you can lean around the corner and the pipe falls down.
Yes.
And it's like, who's there? And he's walking around and the guy walks up. Don't scare me like that. And then, you know, Hideo Kojima has this in like all trailers, like, check out what you can do in my game. It's like this the only part in the entire game where this kind of thing happens, like pipe fall over, guard racks. Like, that's the entire game in Republic Commando. Like how I see it. It's all a lie. Like, the game is a big lie.
Yeah, it's a big quick time event.
Yeah.
Your guys are quick time events that are slow. They're slow time events. And that would be, I think, enough. Because I think I remember we talked about this as I was the pilot for this, which is why I am possibly more heated than usual. We talked about the fact that, like, oh, I can't believe people love this game. And the reviews for it were sort of not bad, but I guess it's game journalism. Like, even then, people were giving everything at least a 7 out of 10.
I remember we watched a bunch of, like, video reviews, like, from GameSpot, Republic Commando. Yikes.
I think this is one of those games where if you have a memory of playing this game and being like, this is SWAT 4, but in space, then you have forced that experience to occur.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, Lilo is such a power gamer, just wanted to go. The game punishes you so severely for trying to do those things. Your guys will automatically just fucking die every encounter if you don't babysit them. So the game ostensibly becomes, they are just, because they can't die. They can die and you can resurrect them. And then if you kill everyone in the encounter, they automatically just get up.
Yeah.
So you just use them as meat shields. And the most damaging thing in the game, because they're just like Jedi power battles, there are a bunch of stuff in the beginning where it's like, oh, there's a bunch of B1 battle droids and there's Geonosians, insect clickers, and you can shoot them and they die. But as the game progresses, every encounter becomes like, oh, now we replaced 20% of these guys with super battle droids, and then there's 30% and 40%, and in the end of the game, you're fighting like 8 super battle droids per encounter, and the only way to kill those at any speed is to mash the worst melee attack ever created, which is like a Assassin's Creed wrist blade with 0 feedback. So all you do the entire game is you tell your guy to blow up a door you can't blow up. You run in and you start sort of fisting super battle droids for 5 minutes, wait until your guys respawn, tell them to blow up the next door, and then you rinse and repeat that the entire game.
Yeah, like my memory from like watching you play this game, it's just a lot of this.
Yes.
It's like watching, you know, someone playing Aliens versus Predator 1 on like God mode or something, just, you know, wrist blading a million idiots. It's rough, and there's a lot of like I remember the enemies are all like insane HP sponges, where it's
and we played it on normal as well.
yes, where it would often be like, you know, oh, I ran out of ammo, or for some reason can't shoot the enemy because they're immune or whatever, and it's just like circle strafing, wrist blade. Like the one good thing about the game was the clone troopers are like, you see a bunch of clone troopers through a glass window or whatever, like in space, in some space station kind of thing, and your guy I might be misremembering this, but in my mind this is what happened. Like your protagonist guy goes like, fuck those guys, they're lesser clone troopers or whatever, and doesn't save them just to show how badass he is or whatever, and they're like, you know, dies. This probably didn't happen in the game at all, but I remember it like that.
I can't really remember. I do remember that they for whatever reason they take the Trandoshans and they make them into like monkeys.
Oh yeah, like the Trandoshans, like it's I remember being so upset over this. like I was emotionally distraught when I saw this, because I think the Trandoshans they're really cool. You know, the Empire Strikes Back, you know, boss like looking down on the Empire officer, what a guy. But then it's like in this game, by the way, Trandoshans, they look like Halo brutes or something.
Yeah,
it's like,
and you fight 18 of them at the same time,
and they keep saying,
Trandoshans are here, sir. Let's go.
or whatever, and it's like, no, these are not Trandoshans.
It's also so weird because the Trandoshan level is like you enter a derelict Star Destroyer or whatever, Venerable Venegation Frigate or whatever the fuck it's called before it's the Star Destroyer. And it's basically like for the first part of the level, it's like an Aliens movie where it's like, oh my god,
yeah,
they've all been killed. Everything is dark. And you like hear the clone trooper like screaming, ah! And then the reveal is like, oh, it's 45 ape Trandoshans with shotguns, who you proceed to wrist blade stab in the face.
Yeah, that's what it's like. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of bad memories from from this because like, but to me, just, you know, like the meta thing to take from Republic Commando is that, you know, considering what like the entire project up to this point and how it all kind of spun from playing Republic Commando, because when we played Republic Commando, it was just kind of like out of, you know, kind of a casual interest of, have you ever played Republic Commando? Oh, let's play it because everyone says so good. I've never played it, like that kind of thing. And it kind of on its own spawned this entire, like, people have you know, false memories and opinions about things. Like they make up games that don't exist. The games that they say are the way they say they are, they are not that way.
They are not,
they are not like that. And Republic Commando is like the arch lich of that.
Unshining nega beacon.
Yeah, it's
of unhope.
Yeah. So if you like Republic Commando,
you don't.
You do not like it. You might like the idea of it, but you've either never played it or you played it at an age where you were dumb.
We could just leave him with this. Play Republic Commando. If you like it, you're not human.
You must be some kind of clone. Maybe you're...
I don't think the clones would like Republic Commando.
No.
They were probably like, this is bad representation.